Chapter 11. And it came to be, when Yabin, sovereign of Katsor, heard, that he sent to Yobab, sovereign of Madon, and to the sovereign of Shimron, and to the sovereign of Akshaph, and to the sovereigns who were from the north, in the mountains, and in the desert plain south of Kinneroth, and in the low country, and in the heights of Dor on the west, the Canaanites in the east and in the west, and the Amorite, and the Kittite, and the Perizzite, and the Jebusite in the mountains, and the Kivite below Hermon in the land of Mizpah. And they went out, they and all their armies with them, as many people as numerous as the sand on the seashore, with very many horses and chariots. And all these sovereigns met together, and they came and camped together at the waters of Merom to fight against Israel. And Yahuwah said to Yehoshua, Do not be afraid of their presence, for tomorrow about this time I am giving them all over to Israel slain. Hamstring their horses and burn their chariots with fire. And Yehoshua and all the soldiers with him came against them suddenly by the waters of Merom, and they fell on them. And Yahuwah gave them into the hand of Israel, and they struck them and pursued them to Great Sidon, and to Misrephoth Maim, and to the valley of Mizpeh eastward. And they struck them until no survivor was left to them. And Yehoshua did to them as Yahuwah said to him. He hamstrung their horses and burned their chariots with fire. And Yehoshua turned back at that time and captured Katsor, and struck its sovereign with the sword, for Katsor was formerly the head of all those reigns. And they struck all the beings who were in it with the edge of the sword, putting them under the ban. He did not leave anyone breathing. Then he burned Katsor with fire. And Yehoshua captured all the cities of those sovereigns, and all their sovereigns he struck them with the edge of the sword. He put them under the ban, as Moshe the servant of Yahuwah commanded. However, Israel did not burn any cities that stood on their mounds, but Yehoshua burned only Katsor. And all the spoil of these cities and the livestock, and the children of Israel took as booty for themselves. But they struck every man with the edge of the sword until they had destroyed them, and they did not leave anyone breathing. As Yahuwah commanded Moshe his servant, so Moshe commanded Yehoshua, and so Yehoshua did. He did not turn aside a word of all that Yahuwah commanded Moshe. Thus Yehoshua took all this land, the mountain country, and all the south, and all the land of Goshen, and the low country, and the desert plain, and the mountains of Israel, and its lowlands, from Mount Kalak, that goes up to Seir, and as far as Baal Gad, and the valley of Lebanon, below Mount Hermon. And he captured all their sovereigns, and struck them and killed them. Yehoshua fought with all those sovereigns for a long time. There was not a city that made peace with the children of Israel, except the Kivites and the inhabitants of Gibeon. All the others they took in battle. For it was of Yahuwah to strengthen their hearts, that they should come against Israel in battle, in order to put them under the ban, so that they might have no favor, but that he might annihilate them, as Yahuwah had commanded Moshe. And at that time Yehoshua came and cut off the Anakim from the mountains, from Kebron, from Debir, and from Anab, and from all the mountains of Yehudah, and from all the mountains of Israel. Yehoshua put them with their cities under the ban. There were none of the Anakim left in the land of the children of Israel, only in Azah, in Gath, and in Ashdod some remained. Thus Yehoshua took the entire land, according to all that Yahuwah had said to Moshe. And Yehoshua gave it as an inheritance to Israel, according to their divisions by their tribes, and the land rested from fighting. Chapter 12. And these are the sovereigns of the land whom the children of Israel struck, and whose land they possessed beyond the Jordan towards the sun rising, from the Wadi Arnon to Mount Kermon, and all the desert plain eastward. Sihon, sovereign of the Amorites, who dwelt in Heshbon, ruling from Aroer, which is on the bank of the Wadi Arnon, from the middle of that wadi in half Gilad, even as far as the Wadi Yabok, the border of the children of Ammon, and the desert plain from the sea of Kinneroth eastward as far as the sea of Arabah, the salt sea, the way to Beth Yeshimoth, and southward below the slopes of Pisgah, and the border of Og, sovereign of Bashan, who was of the remnant of the Rephaites, who dwelt at Ashtaroth at Edrei, and ruled in Mount Kermon, and in Salcah, and in all Bashan as far as the border of the Geshurites, and the Maacathites, and half of Gilad as far as the border of Sihon, the sovereign of Heshbon. Moshe the servant of Yahuwah and the children of Israel had stricken them, and Moshe the servant of Yahuwah had given it as a possession to the Reubenites, and to the Gadites, and to the half-tribe of Manasseh. And these are the sovereigns of the land which Yehoshua and the children of Israel struck beyond the Jordan, on the west, from Baal-Gad in the valley of Lebanon, as far as Mount Halak, that goes up to Seir, which Yehoshua gave to the tribes of Israel as a possession according to their divisions. In the mountain country, and in the low country, and in the desert plain, and in the slopes, and in the wilderness, and in the south, the Hittites, the Amorites, and the Canaanites, the Perizzites, and the Kivites, and the Jebusites. The sovereign of Jericho, 1. The sovereign of Ai, which is beside Bethel, 1. The sovereign of Jerusalem, 1. The sovereign of Kivron, 1. The sovereign of Yarmouth, 1. The sovereign of Lachish, 1. The sovereign of Eglon, 1. The sovereign of Gezer, 1. The sovereign of Debir, 1. The sovereign of Gader, 1. The sovereign of Hormah, 1. The sovereign of Arad, 1. The sovereign of Libnah, 1. The sovereign of Adullam, 1. The sovereign of Makkedah, 1. The sovereign of Bethel, 1. The sovereign of Tappuah, 1. The sovereign of Hepher, 1. The sovereign of Aphek, 1. The sovereign of Sharon, 1. The sovereign of Madon, 1. The sovereign of Katzor, 1. The sovereign of Meron, 1. The sovereign of Akshaph, 1. The sovereign of Ta'anak, 1. The sovereign of Megiddo, 1. The sovereign of Kadesh, 1. The sovereign of Yokneam in Carmel, 1. The sovereign of Dor in the heights of Dor, 1. The sovereign of the nations of Gilgal, 1. The sovereign of Tirzah, 1. 31 sovereigns in all. Chapter 13. And Yehoshua was old, advanced in years. And Yahuwah said to him, You are old, advanced in years, and still much of the land remains to be possessed. This is the land that remains, all the districts of the Philistines, and all the Geshurites, from Shikor, which is in front of Mitzrayim, and up to the border of Ekron northward, are considered as Canaanite, the 5 princes of the Philistines, the Azathites, and the Ashdodites, the Ashkelonites, the Gittites, and the Ekronites, also the Avites. On the south, all the land of the Canaanites, and Me'ara that belongs to the Sidonians, as far as Aphek, to the border of the Amorites. In the land of the Gebalites, and all Lebanon, toward the sunrise, from Baal-Gad, below Mount Hermon, as far as the entrance of Hamath. All the inhabitants of the mountains from Lebanon, as far as Misrephoth Maim, and all the Sidonians. I myself drive them out from before the children of Israel. Only, divide it by lot to Israel as an inheritance, as I have commanded you. And now, divide this land as an inheritance to the 9 tribes and the half-tribe of Manasseh. With them the other half-tribe, the Reubenites and the Gadites, received their inheritance, which Moshe had given them, beyond the Jordan eastward. Moshe the servant of Yahuwah had given them. From Aroer, which is on the bank of the Wadi Arnon, and the city that is in the middle of the Wadi, and all the plain of Medeba as far as Dibon, and all the cities of Sikon, sovereign of the Amorites, who reigned in Keshbon, as far as the border of the children of Ammon, and Gilad, and the border of the Geshurites, and of the Maacathites, and all Mount Hermon, and all Bashan, as far as Salcah, all the reign of Og in Bashan, who reigned in Ashtaroth, and Edrei, who remained of the remnant of the Rephaites, for Moshe had stricken and dispossessed them. However, the children of Israel did not drive out the Geshurites, nor the Maacathites, so the Geshurites and the Maacathites dwell in the midst of Israel to this day. Only to the tribe of Levi had he given no inheritance. The offerings made by fire to Yahuwah Elohim of Israel were their inheritance, as he said to them. And Moshe gave to the tribe of the children of Reuben for their clans. And their border was from Aroer, which is on the bank of the Wadi Arnon, and the city that is in the middle of the Wadi, and all the plain by Medeba, Heshbon, and all the cities that were in the plain, Dibon, and Bamoth Baal, and Beth Baal Maon, and Yatzah, and Kiddemoth, and Mephaath, and Kiriathaim, and Sibmah, and Seraph Shachar, on the mountain of the valley, and Beth Peor, and the slopes of Pisgah, and Beth Yeshimoth, and all the cities of the plain, and all the reign of Sikon, servant of the Amorites, who had reigned in Keshbon, whom Moshe had stricken with the princes of Midian, Evi and Rakim, Sur and Ker, and Reva, princes of Sichon, dwelling in the land. And the sons of Israel killed with the sword Bilam, son of Beor, the diviner, among those who were killed by them. And the border of the children of Reuben was the bank of the Jordan. This was the inheritance of the children of Reuben for their clans, the cities and their villages. And Moshe gave to the tribe of Gad, to the children of Gad for their clans. And their border was Yazer, and all the cities of Gilead, and half the land of the children of Ammon as far as Aroer, which is before Rabath. And from Keshbon to Ramoth Mitzpeh, and Betonim, and from Machanaim to the border of Debir, and in the valley Beth Haram, and Beth Nimrah, and Succoth, and Siphon, the rest of the reign of Sichon, sovereign of Keshbon, the Jordan being its border, as far as the edge of the sea of Kinnereth, beyond the Jordan eastward. This is the inheritance of the children of Gad, for their clans, the cities, and their villages. And Moshe gave to half the tribe of Manasseh, and it was for half the tribe of the children of Manasseh for their clans. And their border was from Machanaim, all Bashan, all the reign of Og, sovereign of Bashan, and all the small towns of Yair, which are in Bashan, 60 cities, and the half of Gilead, and Ashtaroth, and Edrei, cities of the reign of Og and Bashan, were for the children of Machir, son of Manasseh, to the half of the children of Machir for their clans. These Moshe gave as an inheritance in the desert plains of Moab, beyond the Jordan, by Jericho eastward. But to the tribe of Levi Moshe gave no inheritance. Yahuwah Elohim of Israel was their inheritance, as he had said to them. Chapter 14. Now these the children of Israel inherited in the land of Canaan, which Eleazar the priest, and Yehoshua son of Nun, and the heads of the fathers of the tribes of the children of Israel caused them to inherit. Their inheritance was by lot, as Yahuwah had commanded by the hand of Moshe, for the 9 tribes and the half-tribe. For Moshe had given the inheritance of the 2 tribes and the half-tribe beyond the Jordan, but to the Levites he gave no inheritance in their midst. For the children of Joseph had become 2 tribes, Manasseh and Ephraim, and they gave no part to the Levites in the land, except cities to dwell in, with their open land for their livestock and their possessions. As Yahuwah had commanded Moshe, so the children of Israel did, and they divided the land. And the children of Yehudah came to Yehoshua in Gilgal, and Caleb son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite said to him, You know the word which Yahuwah said to Moshe, the man of Elohim, concerning you and me in Kadesh Barnea. I was 40 years old when Moshe the servant of Yahuwah sent me from Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land, and I brought back word to him as it was in my heart. But my brothers who went up with me made the heart of the people melt, but I followed Yahuwah my Elohim completely. So Moshe swore on that day, saying, The land on which your foot has trodden is your inheritance and your children's forever, because you have followed Yahuwah my Elohim completely. And now, see, Yahuwah has kept me alive, as he said, these 45 years since Yahuwah spoke this word to Moshe, while Israel walked in the wilderness. And now, see, I am 85 years old today. Yet I am still as strong today as it was on the day that Moshe sent me. As my strength was then, so my strength is now, for battle, and for going out and for coming in. And now, give me this mountain of which Yahuwah spoke in that day, for you heard in that day how the Anakim were there, and that the cities were great and walled. If Yahuwah is with me, then I shall dispossess them, as Yahuwah said. Yehoshua then blessed him, and gave Kivron to Caleb, son of Jephunneh, as an inheritance. So Kivron became the inheritance of Caleb, son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, to this day, because he followed Yahuwah Elohim of Israel completely. Now the name of Kivron was formerly Kiriath Arba. Arba was the greatest man among the Anakim, and the land had rest from fighting. Chapter 15. And the lot of the tribe of the children of Yehudah for their clans was to the border of Edom, the wilderness of Sin, southward in the extreme south. And their southern border began at the edge of the Salt Sea, from the bay that faces southward. And it went out to the southern side of the ascent of Akrabim, passed over to Sin, and went up to the south side of Kadesh Barnea, and passed over to Ketron, went up to Adar, and went around to Karka, and passed over to Atzmon, and went out to the Wadi of Mitzrayim, and the border ended at the sea. This is your southern border. And the east border was the Salt Sea as far as the end of the Jordan, and the border of the northern quarter began at the bay of the sea at the end of the Jordan. And the border went up to Beth Hogla, and passed over north of Beth Araba. And the border went up to the stone of Bohan, son of Reuben. And the border went up toward Debir from the valley of Achor, and it turned northward toward Gilgal, which is before the ascent of Adumim, which is south of the Wadi. And the border passed over to the waters of En Shemesh, and ended at En Rogel. And the border went up by the valley of the son of Hinnom, to the southern slope of the Jebusite city, that is Jerusalem. And the border went up to the top of the mountain that lies before the valley of Hinnom, westward, which is at the end of the valley of Rephaim, northward. And the border went from the top of the hill to the fountain of water of Nephtovach, and went up to the cities of Mount Ephron. And the border went around Baalah, that is Kiriath Yearim. And the border turned around from Baalah westward to Mount Seir, and passed over to the side of Mount Yearim on the north, that is Kesalon, and went down to Beth Shemesh, and passed over to Timnah. And the border went out to the side of Ephron northward, and the border went around to Shikharon, and passed over to Mount Baalah, and went out to Yebnael, and the border ended at the sea. And the west border was the coastline of the great sea. This is the boundary of the children of Yehudah all around of for their clans. And to Caleb son of Jephunneh he gave a portion in the midst of the children of Yehudah, according to the mouth of Yahuwah to Yehoshua. Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron. Arba was the father of Anak. And Caleb drove out the 3 sons of Anak from there, Sheshai, and Achiman, and Talmai, the children of Anak. And he went up from there to the inhabitants of Debir, and the name of Debir formerly was Kiriath Sepher. And Caleb said, He who strikes Kiriath Sepher shall capture it, to him I shall give Achsah my daughter as wife. And Othniel, son of Kenaz, the brother of Caleb, did capture it. So he gave him Achsah his daughter as wife. And it came to be, when she came to him, that she persuaded him to ask her father for a field. And when she got off from the donkey, Caleb said to her, What is the matter? And she said, Give me a blessing, since you have given me land in the south. Give me also fountains of water. And he gave her the upper fountains and the lower fountains. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Yehudah for their clans. And the cities at the furthest border of the tribe of the children of Yehudah, toward the border of Edom in the south, were Kabseel, and Ader, and Yagur, and Kina, and Dimona, and Adada, and Kadesh, and Katsor, and Yithnan, Ziph, and Talem, and Belaloth, and Katsor, and Kadata, and Kirioth Ketron, that is Katsor, Amam, and Shema, and Moladah, and Katsar Gadah, and Keshmon, and Beth Pelet, and Katsar Shual, and Beersheba, and Bizyothia, Baalah, and Iyim, and Itzem, and Eltolad, and Kesel, and Korma, and Siklag, and Madmana, and Sansana, and Lebaoth, and Shilkim, and Ayin, and Rimmon. All the cities were 29 with their villages. In the low country, Eshtaol, and Sora, and Ashna, and Zanavah, and En-Ganim, Tupua, and Anam, Yarmuth, and Adullam, Sokoth, and Azekah, and Sha'arim, and Adithayim, and Gederah, and Gederothaim, 14 cities and their villages. Sainan, and Kadasha, and Migdal-Gad, and Dillon, and Mitzpeh, and Yokthael, Lachish, and Botzkath, and Eglon, and Kabon, and Lakmam, and Keithlish, and Gederoth, Beth Dagon, and Naamah, and Makeda, 16 cities with their villages. Libnah, and Aether, and Ashan, and Yiftah, and Ashna, and Netzib, and Keilah, and Yakzib, and Mareshah, 9 cities and their villages. Ekron with its towns and its villages, from Ekron to the sea, all that were by the side of Ashdod and their villages. Ashdod, its towns and its villages, Azza, its towns and its villages, as far as the Wadi Mitraim and the great sea with its coastline. And in the mountain country, Shamir and Yatir and Sokoth, and Dana and Kiryath Sana, that is Debir, and Anab and Eshtemoh and Anim, and Goshen and Kolon and Gilo, 11 cities and their villages, Arab and Duma and Ashan, and Yanim and Beth Tapua and Aphekah, and Humta, and Kiryath Arba, that is Hebron, and Seor, 9 cities with their villages, Maon, Carmel, and Zeph, and Utah, and Yisrael, and Yokdeam, and Zanoah, Cain, Yeba, and Timnah, 10 cities and with their villages, Kalkul, Beth-ser, and Giddo, and Marath, and Beth Anoth, and El-Tikan, 6 cities with their villages, Kiryath Baal, that is Kiryath Yearim, and Rabbah, 2 cities with their villages. In the wilderness, Beth Araba, Medim, and Sekakah, and Nebshan, the city of salt, and En-Gedi, 6 cities with their villages. As for the Jebusites, the inhabitants of Yerushalayim, the children of Yehuda were unable to drive them out. So the Jebusites have dwelt with the children of Yehuda at Yerushalayim to this day.